Okay, this video is important. Keep in mind they're changing my voice, the sound of my voice that is, because they know that I'm right. I'm not gay. This video is about the morality that proves a morally precise liberal stance superior on immigration. I've made it very simple for you. There's 19 points. We'll go through them quickly. Point number 1. The rich whites, Jews, and LGBT people who made the immigration policy what it is run both parties. Point number 2. Bill Clinton's administration is said to have deported an unbelievable amount of people. 12 million. And keep in mind he was impeached on his second term. Obama in his 2 terms, which were longer than Clinton's 2 terms, deported only around 5 million people. That's still a lot of people, mind you. Point number 3. This is similar to trickle-down economics as both parties move in ways that reinforce it, right? They both reinforce immigration in their own ways. Deportations in their own ways. As neither party present a logical plan to address economic disparity while making that plan famous. So they don't make a plan that's logical and present it to the public. They don't present the public a plan to address economic disparity, the wage gap, the money gap. And as a result, they get nowhere. The right wing is basically saying, you better do this. And the left wing is saying, yay, we're opposing them, yay. And the problem gets worse and worse. Whether it's immigration, whether it's romantic injustice, or the wage gap, economic disparity. That's what's going on here. Point number 4. Those first 3 points are the central issues, and the rich are people who drink and often do drugs, and they believe in transhumanism for the most part, right? They believe in enhancing their human abilities with technology, what have you. You see, they could just rewire their brains to enjoy themselves without causing all the rapes, murders, and other forms of suffering that they are causing. Also, they could leave America if they do not believe in freedom and human rights, which are supposed to be the core cultural values of this secular nation. It's not supposed to be a sick game. You're supposed to have your rights. If someone raped your daughter, for example, wouldn't you want justice? You wouldn't want people to pretend to bring justice or to do a half-assed job. You'd want justice. And so it is with freedom and human rights. Most people actually are rational enough to actually want freedom in its true form and their human rights intact. They don't want to play a stupid game. And this is supposed to be a democracy where the vote of the masses is supposed to determine things, except for when it comes to individual rights. For example, you can't all just vote that you want to chop up a kid and eat them together. That kid's rights transcend the vote of the masses. Point number 5. Right-wing people often cite the college demonstrators to try to justify insisting that immigrants see things a certain way. Leading up to this, there were far-right protesters that were arguing that 2 out of 3 immigrants that come to America vote left. This makes it clear that they do not believe in a fair immigration process in a country that was founded by immigrants. The vast majority of the world and the majority of America have liberal values more than conservative values, as conservatives tend to have stated arguments that make it clear that they believe in forcing white supremacy on the world and exploiting their labor. Also, there was the January 6 rioters, and they overkill the fact that the conclusion that Republicans are willing to break the law to force white supremacy on people is a sound conclusion. So we have to make the distinction between Republican and conservative. A conservative is somebody who wants to conserve white supremacy, at least in the West and in Europe, and in Israel. They want to conserve white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy. That's their main concern. The reason why they haven't been lashing out to the extreme, isn't because they're civilized or something. It's because both parties enforce these ideas. However, they're also very cowardly. If they saw the vast majority of America swing left and insist that they not force white supremacy on people, they would not want to face the vast majority of people. Gang members, MMA fighters, martial artists, gun enthusiasts, they wouldn't want to face them. They want to be locked up with a bunch of people who are pissed at them for turning to terrorism and trying to cheat them out of their rights because a bunch of spoiled white supremacist babies didn't get their way. They would not sign up for that. That's not what they're known for. Very few of them would take that route, if any. Point number 6. The immigrant flag controversy is also clearly related to the events in the Middle East and to the push for more white supremacy in America. Okay, so Bibi Netanyahu said that his conflict with Hamas was a conflict between civilization and barbarism. And that is at a page from the playbook of white supremacists who argue that anyone who isn't for a white supremacist agenda is a savage. Forget the fact that liberals disproportionately invent things. Okay, people are more accurately described as liberals. Okay, or leftists. They often cite technology as why they would argue that white people are superior. And technology doesn't mean anything. We do not even have a technology day that I'm aware of. Okay? If there's a day like that, it's not that famous. But we have a Martin Luther King Day where he said the content of the character is what people should be judged by. How are you going to avoid that argument completely? And Martin Luther King, even though he has liberal values, was a Republican at the time. It's a long story why that is. He wasn't a white supremacist Republican. But at that time, the parties were doing things a little bit differently. They avoid the argument completely, point right to technology when everyone knows you wouldn't want someone to give you a new car in exchange for eating your family or something. So technology isn't everything. Money isn't everything. Money can't buy you love, and it doesn't bring you happiness. Might make you a giddy, weird, immature-faced little kid, but it won't bring you true, deep, and profound happiness. Okay, point number 7. Donald Trump has even admitted that there were paid provocateurs at the protests. Paid by who? Almost certainly people who know that the effect that they had is an effect that upholds white supremacist values. When protesters act up, people who are for white supremacist quote-unquote law and order, start raising all hell and start acting like they're right. It doesn't help the left. So it was paid by somebody who is best, or a group of people that are best described as conservatives. Point number 7. The Klan is known for using the flag as a symbol to reinforce white supremacy. And the thousands of members of the Klan that are around today are basically all Republicans. This is important here. And point number 8, you're going to see definitively that the Klan, in a different shape and form, well, this is a different form more than shape, that's a story for another day, are around today in the millions. Listen carefully. Point number 8. Millions of members of the Second Klan, which was founded by William Joseph Simmons, who was in 24 fraternities. Again, he was in 24 fraternities. Are those fraternities racist organizations? You betcha. Are many of them around today? Yes. They have more members than they had before? Yes. For the most part. According to many sources that are about as valid as any, the Second Klan had 6 million members or so. 6 million members. Just 100 years ago. They left the Klan and remained in other social clubs. For the most part, that's mainstream history. Or joined new ones to a large degree. They are clearly in both parties, and they are upholding white supremacist values throughout the country. And yes, the Klan is a terrorist organization. So put one and one together. The Second Klan had like 6 million members. 100,000 or so marched on Washington. They're an organization that wears, dresses up like they're a ghost, like Casper the Unfriendly Ghost or something, because they're representing a spirit. That spirit can change, can possess a fraternity, so to speak. right? In other words, a bunch of people who maintain that spirit can take off the robes and join a fraternity or the Republican Party and maintain that spirit. You don't have to have the clothes on to be in the spirit of the Klan. Again, you don't have to be in the Klan officially to be upholding the spirit of the Klan. And yes, the Klan is a terrorist organization, and they use the flag as one of their main symbols to terrorize people. And they would argue that people aren't American enough, and they're not upholding American values, and that they should therefore be terrorized, which is what is going on right now to the extreme. Point number 9. In America, the sextortion and sexual coercion that is disproportionately aimed at vulnerable people is rampant. And as people stigmatize undocumented immigrants, it makes it easier for people to sexually exploit them. You see, the words racist and rapist are similar for a reason, and the Klan was notorious for rape. The second Klan actually fell apart due to a rather prolific and disgusting rape of Oberholzer on a train. And they love that wordplay, right? There was K words for the Klan. It's like, Ayak, are you a Klansman, was one of their codes. They were raping so much that they raped the wrong person, and that caused the Klan to be, dismantled as the people who had those sentiments went into other organizations. They didn't stop being racist, and they did not stop being politically active and socially active. They didn't stop terrorizing people in various ways. Point number 10. Immigrants learn to resent America from U.S. citizens who have been disenfranchised, discriminated against, and who went to schools that did not even bother to teach them in a way that they learn best and at a logical rate in the wealthiest country in the world. We could have more than one program in a school. So whether or not China or Iran funds the protesters does not matter. Far more Americans get killed for non-political reasons, and the government won't lift a finger to stop it in a more way. Trump did not do what he promised. He did not build 10 cities for the homeless. He did not increase funding for law enforcement. He's not lifting a finger to protect Americans. But if they're Zionists in some privileged college who stick up their nose at everyone else, you should start deporting immigrants in mass? If they're at risk of getting a slap on the fucking wrist or being blocked from school, doesn't care about 500 people or so who get massacred in Chicago every year, doesn't care at all. But the privileged worms who exploit their labor, who keep them poor and committing crimes, they must be protected by any means, and you must take the opportunity to violate the constitutional rights of people to the fucking extreme? That's an outrage. Point number 11. When you are right about something and they are organizing proxy groups against you and running psyops with government personnel and law enforcement, weaponizing various departments, and you are liberal, it makes you resent the mostly conservative government. Especially now that the right wing controls the 3 branches of government. So it is the logical human response for an American to resent the government. And when they start having flags and acting like the flag symbolizes that oppression, and people will not stand firm and say what the flag should stand for or what they think it really stands for, you start seeing the flag as a symbol of oppression. That is a logical response. And it is up to the citizens of the nation to make it so the flag stands for true freedom and human rights and justice and giving people the dignity and the respect that they deserve and things of that nature. So they're basically penalizing people for having the logical response to oppressors using symbols that have been used historically in this country against its citizens as signs of oppression, as a symbol of oppression. A flag is just a flag. It is the spirit of the nation that gives it its meaning. And right now, the spirit of America is extreme oppressors and Eeyores. and scatterbrained people saying, yay, while people are getting oppressed and raped and abused. And every once in a while someone gets pissed off because no one's doing anything and they lash out. Who would have thought? I'm not saying I approve of it, but I'm not surprised in the slightest. And I assign blame correctly. I do not use dishonest scales. Okay. Point number 12. What we are seeing is that corporate partnerships are acting like oligarchs and playing both parties, and controlling both parties while they deceive the masses. So we get legislation by deception. Again, legislation by deception. And people in general are playing stupid about it while right-wing people are trying to keep desperate people from coming here. Point number 13. Immigrants commit crimes at lower rates. Point number 14. Immigrants contribute to the economy and they get their labor exploited by right-wingers who want people to complain in a way that makes it easier for them to sexually exploit their workers. As a group, not necessarily every last one of them will say. Also, it is being done by Democrats as well. So it's a sexual exploitation tactic we see. They're basically saying, send them back. We can't stand them. They're not proud to be American. And they want chicks to get on their knees and beg them and offer them sexual favors and say, oh, shucks. Well, I guess you can stay a little longer. That is sick. That is fucking sick. And I'll have no part in it. Point number 15. A lot of people have invested in propaganda like police, officers, military, intelligence agency types, and politicians, generally speaking. And they want to spread propaganda falsehood instead of reality, in terms of by their actions, what their actions suggest. They want people to think like them. That's important here. That's part of the madness that's going on here. That they are upholding a false standard. Instead of the way, the truth, and the life, and one nation under God who insists on the way, the truth, and the life, they want to insist on their white supremacy, viper propaganda standard. The standard of the devil, of hell. Point number 16. People are ignoring the reform the immigration system arguments. It takes up to 5 to 10 years or so in many cases to migrate into America legally, on average. So if gangs are trying to rape and kill you and rob you and your government's oppressing you, you want to wait 5 to 10 years? What would you do? There's a bunch of pirates raping and killing everybody on a ship. Wouldn't you jump in the water and try to get to land or to another ship? But yet you're like, why are they coming here illegally? They're criminals. That's stupid. Why the fuck do you think they're coming here illegally? After your foreign policy has turned their nation against them and made it so it's hard for them to survive, they come here desperate. And what kind of monsters would make their immigration system in a way that makes it extremely difficult for them to come here when they're desperate? Why not just have a region for them? Is it so hard to think of, hey, let's have a region for them, okay, and get rid of birthright citizenship in that region if we really have to? I don't care if you get rid of it or keep it. Votes don't really help anyway. It's all a sick game. But whatever is the morally precise thing to do is what I'm for. Pretty straightforward. Point number 17. We see that people are trying to enforce corrupt Western standards instead of universal pinpointed moral precision. The stated argument in the Constitution is closer to universal pinpointed moral precision than it is to the corrupt Western standards we see being used. This is why people have argued that people are constitutionalists if they talk crazy about the Constitution, as those people are straw men for people who insist on constitutional rights in a way that is logical. So in other words, if someone's talking crazy and they bring up the Constitution and they're wrong, they use them as a straw man for anyone who would bring up the Constitution to say that the Western standard that white supremacists are enforcing is incorrect and that the Constitution proves it incorrect. There's various applications and instances in which we see that being used and playing out. Point number 17. Conservatives in the closet on the left and right-wing conservatives alike are acting like serial killers who have America captive, and they are abusing Americans and raping them and killing them for kicks. They are sexually sadistic, mass-murdering serial killer types. Think about it. It's like they have Americans in a basement and they're abusing people outside of the basement more and saying, well, go to a different country then, so to speak, right? Go outside and get abused more. Why they're acting like arrogant devils while they have them captive in a basement. And they're raping some of them as they see fit. They're killing some of them. They want them to act like they're the heroes, them and their family members and people in their social clubs. It is very sick what's going on. Very, very disgusting. Very immature. It shows they have very poor genes. Only people with very poor genes would stand for that, would go for that, would live that. They ruined the world and said if you leave the country, your life will be worse, and if you do not like it, you should leave and find out. They use this tactic to abuse people in the next week while having people streaming over here desperate at the same time. My global farming program would make it so a lot less people would want to come here. Right? The developed nations spend $500 billion, which is easy to come up with in various taxes. It's easy to come up with when there's dozens of developed nations, depending on how you slice it. Okay. Then those people would have better living conditions in their countries, and they wouldn't want to come here. You know why they don't even think about that possibility? Because they're mass murdering, mass raping, mass drugging, mass assault creating, mass exploiting, mass murdering serial killers. At best. Point number 18. The region argument. A region for immigrants where they pay more in taxes and live in cheaper units and pay much less rent. Solves a lot of problems. Those who have family here can stay with their family outside the region if they want. I guess we could discuss that. They bring up the claim that 20 million illegals came here under Biden and that there are not enough judges in courtrooms, etc. Well, the region argument would solve that. Point number 19. Instead of giving up due process. Point number 19. Think about the code of silence, the LAPD and its history, and prison scandals. Are conservatives really the party of law and order? Or abusing their power, especially if they're police officers, especially if they're prison guards, especially when they're politicians and Supreme Court justices? Thank you.